YouTube, what is going on? Welcome back to Pitch Talk. Today we're going to talk about Manchester City and Brighton at the Amex. A phenomenal result for Brighton and a hugely significant blow to Manchester City. This is their fourth loss in a row, and this is history being made today because this is the first time it's happened under Pep Guardiola. And on a personal note for Pep Guardiola, it's his first ever bad streak of losing four in a row as a manager. This is huge in terms of potentially the title race and top four race, because it's now allowed Brighton to come into the top four, be a few points off Manchester City, and to compete. Manchester City are nowhere near their form that we've come to expect, and we know the resilience from Manchester City, where we know majority of their points come from Christmas onwards. And we know Manchester City come with a heavy push. But playing this sort of game is dangerous because you're allowing the likes of Liverpool to kick clear potentially if they beat Aston Villa, of course. But not only allowing Liverpool to kick clear, but also inviting pressure on from the likes of Arsenal, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, Chelsea. So there's a lot of teams right there in it at the moment, and it's the last thing Manchester City needed to do was lose back-to-back Premier League games. They've now lost three different competitions: the Premier League, the Carabao Cup, and the Champions League. We saw Manchester City go 1-0 up against Sporting in the Champions League, and they fell off terribly in the second half. The same thing tonight with Brighton. Manchester City just don't seem to be at it at the moment, guys. They really are struggling. I think it's a whole mindset thing. It's not just certain injuries. You can't blame just the injuries. Every team experiences injuries, but I think it's a mental thing where they are feeling tired and they're complaining about the constant run of games that they seem to be experiencing, like the rest of the teams in the Premier League and in the world. This is what you get paid for. This is your job. So in terms of complaining and finding problems with the schedule, I don't see that as a viable excuse to lose four on the bounce. Manchester City are not in a good frame, and although they're missing key players that really sum up their team, like Rodri, like Diaz was not on tonight, De Bruyne, who's just come back from an injury, but overall, Manchester City's caliber and star names that they can bring onto the field, they have the experience and they have the squad depth to still be able to beat the likes of Brighton and Sporting, Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. They should not be losing these games, not for a stature of Manchester City's size and obviously ability. So this was a huge shock. Maybe not as huge as we originally thought. Brighton are a very good team. They're playing very good football this season, and they deserve to be in the top four at the moment. Brilliant performance from Brighton. I thought they were first to every ball, especially in the second half. They really took the game to Manchester City, and they saw a weakness in Manchester City that Sporting found in the second half of their game, and they really exposed it and they used it to their advantage. I thought Manchester City were lucky that it was only 2-1 because the game and the constant counter attacks and the shots that Brighton had, that game could have been 3 or 4. So defensively, very weak at the moment. There's no clean sheets at all. I don't see any clean sheets coming. And obviously that has a huge part to play with Rodri not being just in front of the defense. He's obviously the world's number one central defensive mid, and you can't replace a man in that position. As it is, CDMs are so hard to find, and Manchester City have a Ballon d'Or CDM in their team that is currently injured. So yes, I understand that they are struggling without Rodri and potentially De Bruyne, but in saying that, the quality names that they have and the money that they've spent doesn't justify the results. So Manchester City, if you are planning on winning the Premier League and the Champions League, I suggest changing form sooner rather than later, because this Liverpool team and this Arsenal team look a lot stronger than what a few seasons prior looked like. These teams look like they can go the distance this season with Manchester City, and I know people have said that in the past, but Liverpool look different under Arne Slot, and Arsenal obviously now have the experience. And then there's other teams in it. There's Aston Villa who are pushing again. There's Chelsea who are now finding form and competing in the top four. Nottingham Forest, Brighton. So there's a lot of quality and potential, and I think the Premier League is too wide open right now to just say Manchester City will come and fight for it and win it again. It's not the same as what it was a season or two ago, and I see a lot more competition. So Manchester City, you got to find some sort of form. I think there's too much reliance on Erling Haaland, and the squad depth in terms of the striker has really hurt Manchester City. They have nobody else to turn to. There's no more Julian Alvarez. They sold him, although they got a very good price for him. They sold him. Um, Now Erling Haaland, one man. When it's not working with him, they have no one else to turn to. So I think squad depth at the moment is a big thing for Manchester City in terms of the attacking role. They need to find another backup striker for Erling Haaland when he's injured or when he's not performing. Haaland needs a break. And Manchester City need to change their style of play in order to regain and refine that form. And that will start at the pivot, at the very top, with potentially changing the striker or bringing someone just to play directly in behind him. De Bruyne coming back is a huge plus for them. We know City play so much better with him in the team, and their expected goals ratio goes up at least 30 to 35% having De Bruyne back in the team. So attacking wise, he brings a lot, but defensively, they're still leaking goals. So overall, there's a big problem in Manchester City, and I want to know what you guys think. How are Manchester City going to find their form again, and do they have it in them to push again for the Champions League and the Premier League? Guys, let me know. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll check you guys soon. Ciao, guys.